Hey, before we get started with today's episode, I want to let you know that if you're planning for retirement or aren't sure where to start, we have a helpful checklist for you. We put together a guide called your pre-retirement checklist and have made it available for free on our website. This detailed checklist covers things pertaining to cash flow, Social Security, Medicare, asset allocation, and living a purposeful retirement. The link to download the checklist is listed in the episode description. Or you can go to wiserinvestor.com, scroll to the bottom, enter your email address, and then you'll have access to your pre-retirement checklist. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to a Wiser Retirement Podcast, where we believe the best financial advice should always be conflict-free. I'm your host, Casey Smith, guiding you to financial freedom. Today is my co-host, Matthews Barnett. Hey, Matthews.
How's it going?
So today we're going to talk about the effects of retirement on mental and physical health. But before we dive into that, I want to remind everyone we have a YouTube channel also called A Wiser Retirement. You can actually watch our podcast videos there if you want to see us in person. We also have links to other educational short videos. A lot of them done by you, Matthews.
Got one today, I think.
You can download those there. Go check that out. You can link to that channel directly from our episode notes, wherever you're listening to the podcast. So Brad's out on vacation this week. You might want to avoid Lake Oconee. He's driving his boat around out there this week. And Matthews is hot off the airplane from Italy for 2 weeks.
Buongiorno.
That was the honeymoon trip. How was that?
That was a lot of fun. Got very lucky with the weather. First day it was a little rainy and cold, but other than that, weather was perfect. Enjoyed the food and getting to see different parts of Italy. Kind of started the northern part and made our way down south. So just a great trip overall. We
should share some pictures of that on our Facebook page there, Producer Hadley. We need to share that. I saw it on Facebook and Instagram, your personal one. That was you covered most of north of Italy. Did you get into the south a little bit?
Not south like Sicily, but we got down all the way to Positano in the Amalfi Coast. So started in Lake Como, then made our way over to Venice, then made it down to Florence, Tuscany and the wine regions, and then down to Rome, and then finished in Positano, Amalfi Coast area. So kind of northern to south, so got to see a lot of different cultures and parts of Italy.
Did you guys put this together yourselves, or was there a company that assembled the...
We used the agency, which is great because not having to worry about that. And there was everything was perfect. There was one little snafu one day, and it would have been tough to try to figure that out on our own. Everybody speaks somewhat of English, but it is still a little broken. So being able to have somebody local that's able to help was definitely a positive thing.
So it was a spaghetti every night for dinner?
Probably 3 times a day, yeah. You do big breakfast, then lunch, or especially when it went to the vineyards, you would eat, you'd think the wine and cheese was done, and they bring a big lasagna after you've been eating that, and then that was your lunch, and then you would eat pasta again for dinner. So I definitely need to go on a diet. I was always a lot of carbs for sure.
That's funny. Well, it was like you had a great time, and welcome back. Glad to have you back.
Thank you.
So, while you were gone, the stock market kept falling most of the time.
I saw that. It missed me.
So, that creates a lot of anxiety for, if you're saving, even if you're saving still for retirement. It shouldn't. That should create opportunity. But it's human nature that creates some anxiety there. But when you're retired and you're not putting any more money in, that creates some tribulation, I think, for people at times. And it goes back to the importance of having a plan in place. We've got to have a financial plan that takes into account this type of volatility, which ours do. We account for that. Most plans, 18% drop in the account, not the market, but in the account. We always account for that.
Yeah, the 18 to 20% the first initial year, and then the following year 7 to 8%. So we account for these bear market events, which is part of sequence of return risk in retirement.
So, knowing that we've planned for that, we sleep at well, knowing that our retirees are going to be just fine. Outside of other factors that you can get insurance for, then we should be on a good path. So you have that going on right now, but also just retiring in general has a mental and physical toll on you that I don't think people quite realize. Now, I'm not retired, but I did run a dual career for a while. I ran a dual career in airline business. I flew for Atlantic Southeast Airlines, which was part of the Delta Connection system. Flew a little tiny 50-seat regional jet for them, and when I stopped flying, there was some not anxiety, but there was just some, oh my gosh, part of me has kind of died. And we put so much of our life into our work. We spend more time typically working in a business than we do being at our home or even with our spouses. So when you walk away, I know some of our clients walk away and they're like, I'm done. And they don't have any problems whatsoever. But then other people go, well, it's time to move on, but I'm looking for my sense of purpose. And, there's, I don't think it's something that people consider before they retire. And that's something that we ask in our planning meetings, though, as we're doing our final checks just before we tell the boss to kick it, right? I always ask people, well, what is your purpose post-retirement? And some have really good answers, and some others just sit in front of me and say, I really don't know.
Right. Because like I said, you spend most of your life working. Kind of got to find some of those passions to make sure that it's not just work in retirement, because that'll be a little different.
Yeah, there's a study that showed that more than 2 million of the 34 million Americans aged 65 and older suffer from some form of depression. And it's, just like you plan for your finances, we should be planning for our mental health in retirement as well. And I think there's a lot of different ways you can do that. I get to observe a lot of families. You do as well. We have over 350 families here that we work very closely with in retirement. And some have obviously taken up to heavy traveling. Some have focused on grandkids very heavily to give their own kids probably some relief, or make sure that there's a parent figure. And both people work now, right? So it's a little different dynamic. Some actually do nothing with grandkids. It's two different types, right?
Yeah.
Some are like, I've raised them. I did my job. They can raise theirs. And those are typically the ones that will travel and check out for 3-4 months at a time. Then there's people that volunteer. We've had people volunteer I guess it's a paid job technically, but it's almost like volunteer working at a library. Didn't have to, but chose to do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, that's not only a sense of purpose of helping out, but it just keeps you active. The old retirement was retire and just hang out at your house all day, or maybe play some golf. But it's kind of been shown that that's not the case. You need to stay active and find your purpose, whether that be through volunteering, another side part-time job, or just finding kind of passions and hobbies that you like.
One client that was a former teacher, she ended up helping plant and develop a school in Kenya. We actually have a podcast with her, and the gentleman she helped in Kenya start a school. There's other people that have gotten really involved in other community type efforts. Some people, I see them at my club. Some people just sit in the men's grill, and their job is to get their handicap down to whatever, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is sit at home and wondering, what do you got to do today, and start sleeping in past noon. That's allowed for a week, I guess. We give them a week to sit on the couch, but after that, you got to have a purpose. You don't want to be looking at your portfolio balance every single day and wondering if you can make it. That's
probably the worst thing you could be doing, just for anxiety alone, and just not a healthy regimen to get into.
Right. It's staying busy. Obviously, I've got, I have several clients. We lost a few of them here recently, but I never knew them when they were working. I've always known them as retired. But it was interesting to me is they were so busy that one time I was at a dinner with this couple, and they looked at me and said, we don't know what we don't know what we did when we worked exactly, because we don't have time we wouldn't have time to do any work right now. We're so busy with managing their existing assets, plus on top of that, all the family stuff that happens. So it's I think people that are engaged mentally, they seem to live longer and have a better mental state. I always said that about women, because there's a certain generation where the mom always stayed at home, and of that generation, the mom that was in charge of the finances while she was staying at home, I noticed almost 100% that these are all just our client base. It's a very small sample size, but they were much more with it in their 80s versus the ones that didn't even handle the finances. They raised the kids, which is mentally draining in itself. But then, now the kids are in their 60s, right? So I found that those ladies were more mentally mush. Obviously, the husbands had long since passed away, but the ones that stayed mentally engaged with finances and handling of those finances seemed to live a lot longer. So that's kind of a note to self, is make sure that both spouses are being engaged some form or fashion to think. It could be Sudoku. It doesn't have to be finances.
Yeah, bridge, playing something.
You're doing something. Exactly.
That kind of brings a good point too, like we mentioned, is you may not have that being close to retirement, but you can kind of transition into these events and maybe find those different passions, or maybe work a little bit less, not the full grind that you're used to the first few years before retirement, while you kind of transition to not fully working. It's not a hard stop. You find those passions and find a way to bridge that gap over those few years before retirement.
Well, the important part, we've got we have a few podcasts. I guess you can also listen to 6 Ways to Prepare and Enjoy Retirement. That's on our YouTube channel, actually. You can go to our YouTube channel and probably type that in the search bar. 4 Steps to Get Financially Organized Before Retirement. How to Boost Cash Reserves During Retirement. These are all things you can find on the YouTube channel. And then podcast episodes 104, An Investment Portfolio Built for Retirement. We talk about this a little bit, being mentally prepared. Episode 69, Achieving Financial Success in Retirement. Episode 66, Entering Retirement Debt-Free. Those are all very important episodes, especially the debt-free one, because you don't want to have to worry about how you're going to get the bills paid, right? And being debt-free prior to retirement helps that tremendously.
Yeah, tougher to go find those passions or travel when you know that you've got a big fixed liability expense.
I feel like so many people leave their job because they hate the job, that they're just done. And a lot of it has to do with the generational. Maybe there's a new management of the company. Things aren't like the way they used to be. It could be your job's physically tolling on you, right? So your knees are hurting, your back's hurting. It's just time to go. But you have to be financially prepared for that. And also, obviously, mentally prepared for that as well. What are you going to do once you quit? We had one client also. He did some home remodeling, very light, like remodeling. He was someone else's helper. But he said he really enjoyed it, except for the sheetrock. He didn't like the sheetrock.
Most people don't.
So I think that we have our next podcast episode coming up. We have a great psychologist that's going to be talking about helping you find a purpose in retirement. So I don't want to dive into that, in depth. I think she's going to have some great points that we can listen to. But I'm looking forward to that interview next week. And hopefully the listeners will have some takeaway from that. But I think you should always, when your feet hit the floor in the morning, have a purpose. And maybe that purpose could be to relax that day, but every day should be a purpose. Like, what can we be doing to better our community, better ourselves? And so that doesn't stop just because your portfolio is working for you, and you don't have to go into a 9-to-5 job anymore. Yeah,
and that's gonna be different for everybody. So it could take some time to figure it out, or it could be multiple purposes. But just finding a way to figure out what it is.
All right, Matthews. It's a good chat.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to a Wiser Retirement podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, that way you don't miss any new episodes. We would also appreciate if you could leave a rating and review. If you have any questions about anything that was discussed today, head to wiserinvestor.com and reach out. We would love to hear from you. This episode was produced and edited by Lilton Moore.